Hey Jay, thanks so much for joining me today, being willing to share your story. Just to get off, start off on the right foot. Tell us a little bit about you. What do you like to do? Any favorite hobbies, pastimes, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I'm 40 years old. I live just outside Ottawa, in like a small little rural town. I live with my wife Leslie and our little 4-year-old daughter Kira. We have a dog Sage, and I'm like a total outdoor person, so pretty much anything outside, hiking, running, camping, just hanging out in the yard, having a bonfire, relaxing. Just if it's outside, I'm happy. But I'd say my biggest passion is running. I'm currently just well, in the middle of a training right now, just for a marathon coming up in May.
That's pretty impressive. I've only done a half marathon. The idea of doing double that is my body's like absolutely not. It sounds like you're very active, you physically fit, doing everything that you're supposed to do. But obviously, we're here today to talk about cancer, and you always eat right, be physically active, and you'll stay healthy. But you are not the only person that I've spoken to that has been really, really active and still could not avoid it. So when did your journey start? You had mentioned that you're 40 now. How many years ago? Tell me, were there warning signs? Were there, how did that initial diagnosis come about?
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess going back, so almost 5 years, but going back to when I was 36, um, I had almost little to no warning signs at all. For months, I just kind of had like a little, like I'd say very minor stomach discomfort. Um, you know, I've always had very high stress physical jobs, so it's very easy to attribute it to just being stressed out, overworked, whatever, sore body. Um, Nothing really out of the ordinary, to be honest. No family history of colon cancer, very little history in the family of any cancers at all, to be honest. Like you mentioned, I was young, healthy, but kind of all of that changed when I started noticing a little bit of blood show up in my stool. And it wasn't, and again, it was not a lot. It was very, very equal to kind of, I would say, my doctors um, were very convinced it was like hemorrhoids or, just a dietary thing or inflammation or what have you. Um, but when that kind of prolonged, for a couple months, I started to kind of, do a little bit of research. And of course, one of the first things that pops up, right, when you play the Dr. Google game and, you do the whole blood in the stool and abdominal discomfort and fatigue or whatnot, the first thing that comes up is CRC, right? So colorectal cancer. Um, so that's when kind of my spidey senses, I guess, started tingling up a little bit, and I decided it was time to go see the doctor.
And what year was this again? You were 36, is that right?
Yeah, so I was so lucky to go through all of this in the middle of the pandemic as well. So this was this was mid-pandemic. So it was 2019, September, when I decided to go see the doctor. 2020, sorry, when I went to go see the doctor, and I initially saw my GP, and we have a really good relationship. She's known me for a really long time. She's helped me through some pretty significant mental health stuff with work. Um, so she knows when I come in and I'm really concerned about something, something's up. So the important part of kind of that whole part of my story that I always feel is really important to share is she had a resident working with her that day, was like a brand new doctor, and I got to see him first. And he did, his questions and an exam and so on and so forth, the whole, the regular deal when you go to the doctor. And his exact words to me were, "You're 36, you do not have to worry about cancer." Right? So that was, that's a part that I feel is really important to share whenever I tell my story because this was a brand new doctor right out of medical school going through the process, right? So this was 2020. This was not some like hidden thing that like cancer was affecting young people. So the fact that that was kind of his mindset was obviously very concerning, and that's something that's kind of stuck with me to today really, and is really a some fuel that really kind of helps me do what I do now as I'm involved in a lot of advocacy and public speaking. So
When you finally got the screening, how long had all these symptoms been going on for at that point? And then staging what happened after you woke up and they said you've got cancer.
yeah, so my I guess it was a bit of a unique experience because it wasn't really the standard way that you get screened just because the pandemic was going on, so everything was a little bit kind of upside down. Um, but fortunately, I got care really quickly. My family GP, who I saw literally 2 minutes after that resident, um, she was like, "No, no, no, we're scheduling a colonoscopy. This isn't right." But because of the pandemic, it was going to be about a 2 or 3 month wait because at that time it wasn't really urgent. It was more of like an investigative colonoscopy, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So she had put that referral in, but she had also told me that, if things change, if they get worse, if, you're just super anxious and just want to get the kind of process going, go to the ER essentially. So I ended up doing that. So this was in early October of 2020. And no, I'd say 3 weeks later, my wife and I were just like, no, I gotta go. The mind games were too much and I just didn't want to wait anymore. So I went to the ER. Later that day, I was in for an emergency, um, I guess like sigmoidoscopy. It wasn't a full colonoscopy, but just enough to get a biopsy and kind of mark the site off. And as soon as I woke up from that, the general surgeon that performed that he knew right away. He basically said, "Listen, like I've seen this a lot. Um, it definitely looks like cancer." So they couldn't obviously confirm anything at that time. Everything was sent off to pathology. But that was when everything really started. And we had thought initially that it was like a stage two, maybe even a stage one, because they couldn't really tell if those lymph nodes were just inflamed or they were enlarged, or if they were reactive. But according to what the tumor was like, because it was actually quite small, they thought the staging was going to be quite low. So they decided to do upfront surgery. So I had surgery first. I did 12 rounds of full fox, and I worked, I ran, I exercised, I kind of kept life pretty normal all the way through that. Um, yeah, well, I attribute it to like coming into it fairly healthy,
No.
but I was doing a lot. Like I was working with a naturopath and a lot of like acupuncture and massage and vitamins and stuff in conjunction with my oncology team.
Yeah.
And they all worked together, which was phenomenal. So I did chemotherapy from April 2021 to September 2021. And at that point, I was declared no evidence of disease. My scans were clear. And I was kind of put onto surveillance. So I was getting CT scans at that point for every 3 months. And then after a year of that, I got bumped every 6 months, and everything was looking phenomenal. This past September or last September, a couple little spots popped up on my lung, unfortunately. So I had to get that taken care of. Um, I was very fortunate to qualify for a very, very high dose, precise radiation that they use on lungs, called SBRT. My whole team kind of felt that, given the situation, the best course would be do the SBRT. So I went ahead and did that, and I basically have been clear ever since. So um, I did a year. I've been clear for the last just over a year. And last month I got graduated to 6 month scans again. So things are looking really good.
When they found the spots on the lung, did they even need to biopsy it, or did they go straight into, we know what this is, given the past?
Yeah, so I decided not to do a biopsy, simply because I accessed, like, I had a consult with my medical oncologist, a thoracic surgeon, and a radiation oncologist. And our team at the Ottawa Hospital, they are amazing. They work, like, all my doctors work phenomenally together. So because I went to see a surgeon, they had ordered a PET scan, which is, in Canada, like, it's not normal to get a PET scan for CRC. Like, it's not the standard of care. But because when you go see a thoracic surgeon, they could put it through, because they do, like, anything lung related. They do PET scans. So luckily, I accessed a PET scan, and the spot lit up. So for me, after talking to a few people that I know through some advocacy organizations, getting my medical oncologist's opinion, reading the pros and cons of lung biopsies, I opted not to do it, simply just because at that point it was obviously cancer. It lit up on a PET scan. It's grown, so we just wanted to take care of it. I didn't necessarily, personally for me, I didn't feel that the risk that comes along with lung biopsies for my situation was particularly worth it. I just wanted it dealt with. So I chose not to.
In terms of side effects or, day-to-day living after the surgery, after the chemo, now after the radiation, it sounds like yours was either very mild or you just pushed it down and then kept on moving as much as possible.
Yeah, so I think I don't want to say it definitely was not easy. None of it's been easy, but I definitely agree that I think it affected me a little bit lighter, I will say for sure. The side effects were definitely lighter. Surgery, I bounced back probably in about 4 weeks. I would say I was pretty much back to, I wouldn't say normal, but like living normally, right? Of course, I still couldn't like lift, and I had to watch everything, but I was able to like go on walks. I was slowly starting to work again. Like, things were kind of moving forward. Even though the surgery was no joke, like, it was definitely a big one, but I guess just my mindset from being an active kind of competitive person, I just wanted to get up and go, which we all know, like, after surgery, that helps, of course. Chemotherapy was a different beast. I don't think I was expecting it to hit like it did. Like, I know people have it way, way rougher than I did. But it was hard. Like, I was exhausted. Fortunately, I did not get a lot of the side effects that a lot of people do with FOLFOX. I really dealt, the most significant one was neuropathy. I did get really bad neuropathy in my hands and feet, that I would say definitely impacted my quality of life for sure. I couldn't run for about 2 years. I had to kind of switch to like walking and hiking and swimming and all that, because like my feet just were angry, right? And some days I couldn't feel my feet, other days they were pins and needles, other days they were throbbing. My balance was kind of all wonky, but that was about a two-year process of kind of working through all of that, and kind of getting myself back to where I am now. Radiation, to be perfectly honest, it was a cakewalk. SBRT is an amazing technology. I literally left work for an hour, went and got my 10-minute treatment and went back to work. A couple weeks after my last treatment, I definitely got hit with a couple weeks of pretty intense fatigue, but that was it. Like beyond that, I would not have known that I had any treatment. I had no effects with my breathing, no pain, no nothing. Just a little extra tiredness and stuff for a little bit.
That's amazing. We'll get to the technological advancements here in a few minutes. I wanted to kind of rewind. I'm not very good at math, so forgive me if this is incorrect, but looking at the timing of the diagnosis and kind of when you were going through all of this stuff, was your wife pregnant at that point? Was your daughter, an infant at that point? Because I imagine, going from, oh no, you don't have to worry about cancer to, no, it is cancer, it's difficult. But when you're expecting or you have a child that you're looking after, I'm assuming that makes it infinite times worse.
Yeah, so I guess just to kind of rewind that, I guess. So our daughter, we actually adopted her. So the process though was absolutely affected by the diagnosis, because right as we were going through the process to get approved as adopted parents, we got hit with the diagnosis, right? So we had to basically put all of that on hold, not really knowing what was coming next or what would be in the coming months or years. So that was put on hold, which was really hard because it's a very strenuous, time-consuming, it's a stressful process, right? Like we adopted through the Children's Aid Society, so it wasn't like paid adoptions. It was not, so like they really put you through the ringers, right? Like of background checks and interviews, and it's like a year process of all this stuff, right? So we were right at the end, basically, and yeah, it was very, very heartbreaking and demoralizing to have to put that on hold. But how everything kind of turned around is, fast forward, I guess, a year and a half, I finished my chemotherapy on September 24th, 2021. And then 2 weeks after that, we actually got a call from our caseworker basically saying like, hey, we know you guys are on hold. You got a lot of life stuff going on right now, but I have to call you guys because we have this little girl that's, coming through the system here that literally fits, like your guys' profiles are perfect. So we kind of had this choice, right? Of like, well, we don't really know what's happening next. We just kind of went through a year and a bit of just complete chaos and getting the rug pulled out from underneath us. But yeah, so anyways, we decided to say yes, because after a year of, just complete chaos and the worst kind of thing that could happen, it was kind of a total 180 to one of like the best things that could happen, right, to our family. So we decided to say yes, and I honestly didn't even have time to like process or decompress from what like had just happened to me. Within like 2 weeks after that, we had a little 11-month-old living with us.
little small changes.
Oh yeah, so it was a lot, right? But so that's how that came about. But I guess it definitely did affect us, right? Like the process, we did have to put that process on hold. And even when we decided to say yes, like we did have a lot of that, like, is this responsible of us? Like, should we wait until we really know more, we're more stable, or we're, like, is this even the right choice? No. But then, our caseworker was great. And my wife and I really had a lot of really long talks, and we're saying like, whether you adopt or whether you have, a child naturally, you don't know what's going to happen in 5 months. Like, you just don't know, right? So I guess you can't, we didn't want to make a decision based on a what if. We wanted to kind of make it based on what was right in front of us. And we jumped right in, and yeah, she's just turned 4, and she's a busy little one.
I can only imagine. Looking towards the future, that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I spoke to somebody the other day, and he had used the word scanxiety, of going into the scans, knowing, especially in a case like yours where you've already had one thing pop up and you had to address it. How often are the scans? You said every 6 months at this point, or is it every year?
No, so I was doing them every 3 months, and now I just had my last one in January,
Okay.
and now I'm back to 6 months. So now I'm kind of free from the whole patient thing until July, um, which is amazing because going from that like 4 scans a year to two is like, it's absolutely freeing, right? Because on that like 3 month scan cycle, you get so stressed leading up to it. It takes you like a month to decompress after you get your results, and next thing you know, you're getting anxious about your next one.
No.
So it's kind of just like a vicious cycle.
How do you deal with that though? Because some people would be on the flip side. They say, well, I don't want a recurrence. I want to catch it as soon as possible if it does recur. So let me stay on that 3 month.
Mhm.
You're on the opposite spectrum. And obviously with something like cancer, you could have the same staging, the same type of disease, and two vastly different experiences
Mhm.
with two different people. So I guess how do you approach that mindset? Because I know that it is a stressful, wondering, is it coming back? What's
Mhm.
next after everything you've gone through, especially when you've got a 4-year-old that you're
Mhm.
trying to keep up with as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's kind of the golden question, right, for any patient, I think. But for me, I really use like my running as medicine to me. I find draining that energy is super important. Having a really strong support network around me who understand what that like kind of what they'll never really understand like from like I experience it, but we're kind of long enough in it now where they kind of know my like pattern where okay, scans are coming up, Jay's going to be a little bit on edge for a little bit, or he's going to be a little quiet, or he just needs, he needs a little bit of space, or he just, um, not asking me about things. I've been very clear with my expectations too, like as I've kind of gone through these 4.5 years. Um, I don't think, I don't think it's fair to say it's gotten easier. I think I've just gotten a lot better at managing it,
Yeah.
right? So with knowing what's coming up, like I know that okay, like lead the week leading up to scans, I'm going to be anxious. So I have to make sure I'm getting my runs in, I'm eating, I'm sleeping. Um, I always make sure to like book an appointment like with my therapist that week, just to get in there to like, she helps me get on track, right? Um, my support groups, so I'm in a couple like support groups that I've been with since day one that are lifesavers to me. So really getting with those people, and just really surrounding myself with the tools that I know work. Um, because the reality is I can't escape the scans, right? So it's more like how do I live with it as opposed to fighting them, and like fighting the anxiety and fighting the fear because yeah, I should be worried, I should be scared, like it's a serious like there's a lot riding on these scans, right? So as opposed to um, and I spent the first couple years like really fighting it, and it's exhausting, and it's not a way to live, right? So I kind of made the choice to just live with it, right? Like figure out how to live with it, and how to kind of work through those processes and have it affect me the least possible. Because the reality is I can't run from them, right? So I got to kind of learn how to be friends with it, I guess.
Yeah. You had mentioned a couple minutes ago about the radiation treatment that you got with the lungs and
Mhm.
how you said it was a cakewalk, and just advancements that have been made across a multitude of different types of cancer. With that in mind, I wanted to share two images, kind of a before and after, that kind of goes along with that theme of where we are in 2025 in terms of being able to address cancer. And I wanted to get your reaction to kind of both of them. So obviously going to share the first one with you. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, I could.
Okay, so a little bit older than you were, a female, stage 3. You see that? Does that remind you of your experience? Does that bring back anything for you?
Um, you know what? It's interesting because when I had my colonoscopy prior to surgery, because they had to go in and like they tattoo everything, um, I specifically asked the doctor who was actually going to be my surgeon. I said, I don't want to be sedated. Like, bring me back just enough. I want to see this thing. Like, I want to see what's causing all this chaos and, what this thing looks like. Just to put, like, you hear about it, you see on scans, but, like, for me, like, I needed to see it. So
Yeah.
this just reminds me of, like, lying on the table, looking at the monitor. And my tumor was a lot smaller than that. Um, and it definitely didn't look that scary. But I remember looking at the picture and just saying, like, I can't believe that that little thing is causing all of this chaos. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it was almost hard to connect the two because it looked so small and harmless, but obviously it was not. But I just couldn't, I had definitely a hard time processing that something like that could cause, so much chaos in my life.
Yeah. Now, the before, this is the after here. Obviously, you didn't get immunotherapy in terms of your treatment. It is, one of the advancements that we're talking about. Um, but just looking at the time frame there between the left image and the right image in 7 weeks of treatment, what kind of goes through your mind? What does this do in terms of, if you do have another recurrence, or if somebody that is diagnosed with cancer, what is possible with today's medicine, thanks to research and trials and everything else that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing, right? Like, I don't think, um, I've been kind of in this cancer space for about 4.5 years now, and I've met lots of people and have gone to lots of things and events and spoken at different, you know, fundraisers and awareness campaign events, and seeing lots of this different, like, hearing lots of stories like this and seeing these types of pictures. Um, and it's just, to me, it's mind blowing that there's people out there that are so smart, and scientists so advanced that, um, this kind of stuff is even possible. Like, I feel like I'm pretty educated on my disease and treatments, but, like, I can't even I can definitely not say that I can even come close to a level of understanding, um, how this type of stuff works and how it's even discovered or created. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I agree. And
Yeah.
I worked at the cancer center for about a
Yeah.
year, and it was an educational cancer center, so they were doing all the trials, and it was just wild. They had to dumb things down a lot for me to
Yeah.
understand. There's a lot of big words that just went straight over my head, but it is really incredible. And no, we don't have like the take this pill and your cure of everything imaginable. I don't think that we'd ever get there. But in terms of providing hope, especially for patients that have been diagnosed stage 3, stage 4, that 15 years ago may have been, there's not much we can do for you. We can elongate the life, but
Mhm.
beyond that, who knows? Um, it is pretty incredible. You mentioned at the very beginning of the call that you are preparing for your marathon. Will this be the first one that you have done since all the treatment, everything has happened?
Yeah, so I've always been a huge runner. Obviously, like I was saying, kind of a side effect from Folpox. Um, really did a number on my feet. Luckily, my hands, everything is back to normal. But my feet are doing much better, but it definitely has been a grind, of a lot of different shoes and socks and doctors and supplements, and just I've tried everything and anything. Just running, I had to get back to it.
Yeah.
So last year, I was really kind of back to some good distance running, and I did my first half again last September, which was awesome. But my goal now is to get back to a full. So I'm kind of just on a training workup right now. It's definitely taking a toll. My body, I always like to tell people, everyone, of course, they go, oh, it's so amazing. And yeah, it's great. Like, for me, it's a big deal because I don't do it for, like, attention. I don't do it for, Do I think it's awesome? Absolutely. But for me personally, it's important because like it's to show myself that like my body's not broken, right? Because when I got diagnosed, I was young, healthy, fit, and that just totally messed my self confidence and my trust in my body up. So this is kind of like just like a push back at all of that. But I definitely noticed that, it's hard. Like I take longer to recover now. Like I definitely, I fatigue a little bit easier. So it's learning kind of who I am now and what my system is capable of now, kind of with all those lingering effects. But I'm pumped. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to do another one again. We'll see how this one goes. But I did, as soon as I got my feet back under me, I did make a promise to myself that I would get back and I would do a full one again. Um, Whatever happens after that, I've kind of left that to, the future. But for right now, I'm going to do the full. So,
Well, that is incredible, and again, more
yeah,
power to you because I
yeah,
can't even fathom past the 13.1. That's enough for me.
yeah.
Um, as we begin to kind of wrap up, obviously, I wanted to thank you for your willingness in sharing. Colorectal cancer obviously brings all kinds of stigmas associated with it, just based on what it is and where it is. But I think that hearing stories and hearing what worked for you may not work for somebody else, but they might be able to do a iteration of it, or do parts of it that they may have found helpful. And I think that you brought up the support groups, and that's really important because it can be very isolating, especially when you're diagnosed in the middle of a pandemic when everybody was already isolated. Um, just last couple words, what would you say to somebody that maybe in their mid 30s, like you, have a young family or starting to think about having a family, that gets this diagnosis? What would you say to you 5 years ago, the day before any of this stuff even happened?
Yeah, well, I've had to answer this question a lot. And every time different stuff seems to come up based on like the conversation. But I would just say that first and foremost is I would say that nobody's invincible, right? Like we're all young, we all think it's not going to happen to us, it's not possible. Um, Something I always definitely like to say is I had no predispositions, zero, right? I was doing all the right things, and it happened, right? So it's possible. So I think it's accepting that the trends are changing. The trends have been, on a huge incline for that like 30 to 45 age category of getting this diagnosis. Um, and when you get that diagnosis, it's not it's not a death sentence, right? Like, I think one of those things, and I did this, I think every person does this when they hear they have cancer, is I'm going to die tomorrow, right? Or I'm going to die for sure. And that's not the case, right? Like, yes, unfortunately, a lot of people do pass away, but there's a lot of amazing, there's a lot of amazing doctors, um, therapies, trials, systems like out there to help you. Um, I would just say do your homework, right? Like, unfortunately, the cancer space is one of those things. It's an industry, just like everything, um, and just be cautious. Like there is a very ugly side to it, where you have people trying to sell cures and oh, do this and it's going to fix you, or I beat cancer this way, I did this and that, the other. Um, I'm not going to go into names or anything on this, but there's a few really big key ones out there that are taking advantage of people, right? And cancer is such a unique experience. Like you mentioned it before, that you could have 100 people with very similar diagnoses, age, health conditions, what have you, and each of their experiences are completely different. Their outcomes are totally different, and nobody can explain why, right? So my biggest suggestion to people is do your homework. Like find whether it be like support groups, um, or like your medical team, very accredited, valid, proven research and established research, and go from that, right? It's very easy to go down the dark hole in Google and of the internets and all this stuff, but it just makes everything way, way worse and way harder. So do your homework, educate yourself, learn as much as you can about your disease, so you could actually be part of your medical team, not just a patient, like you're not just there being told what to do. You could actually be like an active participant in your discussions with your doctor, like making decisions on your care, and it gives you a sense of control back, right? So that's what I would say is find your reliable people and really kind of lean into that.